So, what do you do when you are starting to doubt that perhaps gentle parenting, mindful parenting, conscious parenting, respectful parenting isn't for you, that it isn't working for you? Now, all these different terms, they are slightly different. They all have slightly different ideas, but all have in common this idea that we are trying to do something different. We are parenting probably in a different way to which we were parented ourselves, and we all have our own reasons for wanting to do that. And we all have our own reasons for wanting to explore that. But what do you do when you kind of start to get those little niggling doubts about whether you are doing this right or whether you are doing what's right for you? Perhaps you're being criticized by other people. Perhaps people are offering you friendly advice that's going against what you believe to be right for you and your family. So, what do you do in those instances when you start to question whether it's right, whether what you're doing is working, or whether you are in fact spoiling your child, or whether you are in fact making a rod for your own back? Or making life difficult for yourselves. And I think this can happen frequently when we see that things aren't working. And when we see that things aren't working, what we're saying, what we're thinking is this strategy, this tip that I've picked up and implemented hasn't had an instantaneous result. This strategy that I'm using isn't getting my child to do da 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 da. So I suppose if you're measuring the success of your parenting in terms of whether your child is doing what you're asking them to do, whether your child is cheering up when they're upset after you've implemented a technique or a strategy, whether your child is able to stop kicking and screaming and shouting in the supermarket once you've implemented a specific strategy or tip. You know, if you're measuring the success of what you're doing by those short-term immediate results, then you are going to start doubting whether what you're doing is working. Um, because the goal isn't necessarily, although it does help in those moments, the goal isn't necessarily to get your child to do what you want them to do, get your child to stop doing what you don't want them to do. It's not a control based outcome that we're after. The goal of these forms of parenting, as I see them, is about relationship building and brain development, brain and nervous system building, which are much longer term goals. So they're kind of it's a front loaded investment, right? It's a hefty investment that we put in the early years. And what we're doing is we're creating the optimal conditions, like a gardener. We're laying the foundations. We're creating the optimal conditions for our child's nervous system and brain to develop in such a way that means when they're older, they have much more emotional intelligence. They're much more resilient. They're able to understand and tolerate their feelings. They understand and tolerate other people's feelings. And this is what we're after, isn't it? Alongside a relationship, a connected relationship with them, a relationship whereby they can trust you, they can talk to you. They're not going to be worried about what your reaction's going to be. They're not going to be worried about any judgments from you. Once they're older and they're separating, which is an absolutely necessary part of development, you know, when they're hanging out with their friends more so than being at home with you and their family, when they're moving away physically, you know, when they're going away, they're starting their own families, they're still going to be wanting to connect with you. They're still going to be wanting to call you and ask for your advice. They're still going to be wanting to call you and confide in you. And this is, I think, for me at least, and I think from what other people share with me when I speak to other parents, this is what we want. This is what we have in mind when we're thinking about why are we doing this? Why are we even doing this when it feels like sometimes we're making our lives so much harder and we're having to explain to other people why we're doing what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. We're not doing it because we want to control our kids in the moment. We're not doing it because we want our children to stop having a temper tantrum in the supermarket. These aren't our goals. This isn't what we're after. But sometimes it's difficult to remember that and hold on to that in the moment. So this is just a little reminder. If you do start to question why you're doing this, and if these are in fact your goals, you know, your longer term goals, then keep going with this value-based approach. Keep going with gentle parenting, conscious parenting, respectful parenting, whatever it is you subscribe to, because all of those styles of parenting have those longer term goals in mind. So I hope this video was helpful. Please leave me any comments and tell me whether you've watched it and what you thought about it. That would be lovely. Thank you. Bye.